Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel. I of course am just another heavy metal maniac, and today I am going to be making the video discussing what I've been listening to in the month of January and February. I meant to make this video like before the end of January, but I just didn't get around to it until now, but I'm finally going to be making this video. This is the third video in this kind of little series I'm doing where I just, discuss some of the albums I've been listening to for the past month and some of the albums that I've discovered. So yeah, without further ado, enough of my ramblings, let's just get right into this video. Of course, we are going to be starting off with the 5 albums I've been spinning the most, or maybe not the 5 albums I've been spinning the most, but 5 albums I've been spinning a lot in January and a little bit in this month as well. But yeah, so for me, for January, it was kind of a mixture of mostly old school death metal and kind of old school doom metal, like 80s doom metal. Like really, those were the 2 genres I found myself kind of listening to the most at work. I would have always put on either my kind of doomy playlist or my death metal playlist because, at work, because usually I listen to albums and then I just pick different albums, but at work, I can't really do that. So I just create a couple playlists and I just put on those. But anyways, so the first album I want to discuss is from a band that needs no introduction. Really, this album needs no introduction. It's Black Sabbath with their album Mob Rules. Yeah, I absolutely love this album. This is my favorite of the Dio era of Black Sabbath, and yeah, this album is just absolutely amazing in my opinion. Not my favorite Black Sabbath album overall. I do prefer Volume 4 and Master of Reality to this one, but this is not far off, like, at all. My favorite Black Sabbath song, Sign of the Southern Cross, is on this album, and I just love that song to bits and pieces. That's one of my, probably top 10 favorite songs ever. Some other songs in here I absolutely love are Over and Over, Turn Up the Night, Falling Off the Edge of the World, Country Girl, Voodoo. Every single track on this album, the title track is amazing, but every single track on this album is just incredible. The songwriting for this album, I think, is just top-notch. The production, it's got that kind of perfect 80s metal production. I just love the guitar tone, and the drumming on this album is, awesome. And, of course, Ronnie Dio's vocals. That guy was probably the greatest metal vocalist that ever lived, honestly. And you cannot top Dio. I'm sorry, you cannot top Dio. You can try, but you're not going to succeed. This is arguably kind of more of a maybe heavy metal album as opposed to the early, more straight up kind of doomy stuff of earlier Black Sabbath, but there's still definitely some doomy elements on this album, like Sign of the Southern Cross and Over are very, very doomy songs. Those are my 2 favorite songs on the album, so yeah. But yeah, this album, again, probably don't need to really speak any further on it. I think everyone knows this album, everyone knows Black Sabbath, and I think everyone who watches this channel probably loves this album. Yeah, Mob Rules, this is just an absolutely amazing album, and I've been listening to it a lot, and I fucking just love this album. So, another album I've been spinning a lot in January, I guess, sorry, it's kind of a weird thing, because I'm talking about what I've been listening to in January, but I'm filming this in February, so yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. But one album I listened to a lot in January is St. Vitus's self-titled debut. This is not my favorite St. Vitus album. Again, I do prefer Born Too Late, and there may be a couple others I think are slightly better, but I think this debut is absolutely just awesome. This is, again, I love the production of this album. It's just that kind of very raw but very heavy production. It kind of has, even though this is all, very doomy, but very much kind of Black Sabbath worship, it kind of has this underlying kind of 70s garage rock sort of vibe. I feel like these are just kind of a bunch of, stoners from LA who are kind of all right, let's just get in the studio and let's just, play some riffs and we'll just kind of see how it goes from there. Only 5 tracks on this album, but I love every single track on here. My favorite track is the closing track, Burial at Sea. I absolutely love that song. I also love The Psychopath and Zombie Hunger just as much. And the other 2 songs, White Magic, Black Magic, and the song St. Vitus, I mean, those songs are absolutely awesome. Too. Again, not my favorite St. Vitus album, but when I do finally get around to ranking St. Vitus, this album will be very, very high up. Probably, at the very least, top 5, maybe even top 3, who knows. Once again, I'll rank St. Vitus in the future, but that might be, far off because there's other bands, too, I want to rank. But yeah, St. Vitus' self-titled album, pretty damn killer album. And another classic doom metal album I've been spinning a lot lately is Witchfinder General's album, Death Penalty. This honestly is one of my favorite albums ever. I absolutely love this album. This is the perfect blend. For me, Witchfinder General is pretty much if Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath had a love child, this would be Witchfinder General. This is the perfect blend of that, doomy, Sabbathy sound, but also mixing with those great new Wabum riffs and harmonies, and yeah, this is just a perfect album. Love the album cover. It's got boobs on it. How could I not love the album cover? But yeah, I absolutely love this album. The song Witchfinder General is a fucking amazing song. One of my favorite songs ever. Other songs like Invisible Hate, Free Country, R.I.P., Burning a Sinner. Zeeb Parks, he is a bit of an acquired taste, definitely. Or I say a bit of an acquired taste. He is very much an acquired taste, and I guess maybe objectively he's kind of a shit singer, but I love his vocals. And it matches the music perfectly. So out of the two first Witchfinder General albums, because I just like to pretend that the third one just kind of doesn't exist, I find between Death Penalty and Friends of Hell, I prefer Death Penalty a little bit more, but Friends of Hell is also awesome. But yeah, Death Penalty, one of my favorite albums like ever, honestly. I just love this album. And yeah, Witchfinder General. But I mean, really, if you're any kind of doom metal fan / new Wabum fan, worth your weight, you'll be intimately familiar with who these guys are. But yeah, I just absolutely love this album. Been spinning it a lot. Let's get a little bit out of the doom metal now, and let's talk about some old school death metal. So one kind of old school death metal album I find myself returning to a lot lately is Fleshcrawl and their debut, Descend into the Absurd. I think this is definitely my favorite Fleshcrawl album because I feel like they kind of morphed their sound a little bit after this album, because this album is just like giant sounding. Like I wouldn't describe this album as like death doom, but it's definitely got some just doomy elements. It's got these, passages where it just gets real slow, and just, the riffs are just these crawling, nasty, disgusting riffs. But after this album, they kind of shifted a little bit more into, like, I feel like they kind of maybe refined their sound a little bit, I suppose, and they kind of got more kind of groove laid in, a bit more kind of like the Floridian sound kind of snuck into this band's sound, which I feel like is kind of always underlying there, because it's been in Germany. A lot of German death metal bands love the Floridian bands, but it definitely kind of, I think, came up much forward more in their later material. But yeah, Descends the Absurd. I love, like, most tracks on this album, like Frenetic Tendencies. The song Perpetual Dawn is absolutely amazing. Pusculent Bowel Erosion, that's just like a great song title. I also love like Lost in Grave. I just really dig this album. This is just, again, I love the production mostly. The production of this album, it just sounds absolutely gigantic and massive. Great cover art too. Overall, I really dig this album. Been spinning it a lot, and yeah, Fleshcrawl, Descend into the Absurd, just a really killer old school death metal album. And the final album I want to discuss for this section is Mortiskuld and their debut, Dying Remains. I always kind of flip-flop back and forth between this one and their sophomore, As Humanity Fades, as to which Mortiskuld album I like more. Personally, I probably give As Humanity Fades just the ever so slight edge, because I feel like they got the production a little bit better, and maybe just the songwriting was just a teeny bit tighter. But Dying Remains, I love this album. Like, this is, like, Mortiskuld are honestly one of my favorite, like, old school death metal bands. One of the more underrated old school death metal bands, definitely, probably because, they didn't really have the strength of being part of, like, a regional scene. I think it's probably what played a big contributing factor to them not staying more kind of underground, because, they were from Wisconsin, so they didn't have the backing of, like, being part of Florida or New York or any, regional scene, really. They were kind of on their own. But yeah, I absolutely love this album. The title track is absolutely amazing. Without Sin, Rotting Ways, Useless to Mankind. But I love the vocals on this album. Like, the vocals are just absolutely just, feral and disgusting. All the riffs on this album hit. The production is maybe objectively not the best, but it does kind of have that old school charm that I do like. Again, I think the follow-up to this album was maybe an ever so slight improvement, but I really love this album. I could jam this album over and over again, and I have been. So yeah, and also stay tuned for when I do my next death metal debuts tier list, because Fleshcrawl and Mortiskuld are both going to be on there. So stay tuned for that. All right, now that we've covered the albums I've been spinning, let's talk about some of the albums that I've discovered. So this isn't every album I discovered in January, but is 5 kind of notable discoveries I made. And we're going to start off with more old school death metal. So the first discovery I want to talk about is the album called The Rotting Ways of Human Misery by the band Blackthorn. So this is the lone full-length album from this Mexican death metal band. And overall, I think this is just a pretty kick-ass old school death metal album. Very much kind of got that. It's definitely aping the Floridian death metal sound a little bit. Like, there's a lot of comparisons that I think you could be made to, like, Death and Obituary, maybe a little bit of kind of like Malevolent Creation in there too, and like Master as well. I know Master's not Floridian, but there is definitely just that kind of more, primal, aggressive, kind of thrashy death metal sound on this album. Definitely comparisons to Morgoth as well, although I wouldn't say it's as doomy as Morgoth. Got, just that the vocalist has this very, kind of Chuck Schuldiner, John Tardy-esque vocal delivery, just that kind of more high, kind of Banshee-esque kind of wails. The production on this album, I think, is just that kind of perfect old school death metal production. It's not too raw, it's not too polished. It just kind of hits that spot perfectly, I think. But yeah, overall, I really enjoy this album. And again, if you like Death, Obituary, Morgoth, Master, check this album out. I think you'll really enjoy it. Something about these Mexican bands, man. I don't know what it is, but I feel like Mexico has like one of the more underrated metal scenes, because so many, like, every Mexican band I've heard, I've liked. Like, Cenotaph, The Chasm, Shub Niggurath, Yellow Mictlan. Mexico has just amazing metal bands, and they are really, really good at what they do. But so yeah, Blackthorn, Rotten Ways of Human Misery, check this album out. I think it's pretty damn killer. Alright, let's detour from death metal for a moment to talk about the band Force and their lone full-length album, which is also entitled Force. So, this is the lone full-length album from this Maryland-based doom metal band. This actually was, I believe, the first project of Alfred Morris, who some of you would probably know as the founder behind the more famous doom metal band Iron Man. But yeah, so this was kind of one of his earlier projects. Even though this band formed all the way back in 1976, this debut did not come out until 1991. And overall, I really, really dig this album. Like, this is just, classic, old-school doom metal done, like, frankly, perfectly. Like, it's just got those, it's got those big, big Sabbathy riffs, but it's also got that kind of more, like, 70s, 60s rock sound going on as well. Like, you can definitely hear the influences from bands like, Budgie, Sir Lord Baltimore, stuff like that, all over this album. The vocals, there's actually a female vocalist on this album, and she sounds amazing. Like, I think she does a fantastic job. I really, really enjoy the vocals on this album. The production is definitely more on the raw side. It kind of has that raw, demo-ish kind of feel. I feel like it kind of adds to the charm of the album, though, rather than, like, detracting from it. Kind of definitely reminds me a lot of, like, early Pentagram, like, back when they were more kind of demo-ish days before they were putting out any full lengths. There's definitely, I think that's the biggest comparison to make, other than Black Sabbath, obviously, is if you like Pentagram, you will probably really like this, because it does sound a lot like Pentagram, admittedly. So yeah, Force, this is just like some classic killer doom metal. Again, if you like Black Sabbath, Pentagram, Maryland doom metal bands, like obviously if you like Iron Man, The Obsessed, any like Wino project, really check this out. You'll probably dig it. I dig it. I think it's a pretty killer album. Alright, now we're going to be departing the North American continent for my next two choices, and we're going to be going to Asia. So our first stop is Hong Kong, of all places, to check out the band Hyponic and their debut album, Black Sun. So this is the debut album from this Hong Kong death doom act, and this is just some gnarly, gnarly death doom. Like, I really enjoy this album. Like, I guess you could maybe lump it in under Incantation Worship a little bit. There's a lot of comparisons you can make between Incantation and this album. Definitely Autopsy too. Definitely just kind of like all of the old school American death doom bands. Maybe even a little bit like Winter as well, when it gets like really slow and really doomy. I do really dig this album though. Like, again, the production has just got kind of that nasty, gritty sound. All the riffs are killer. The vocals, just these low, gurgly, gross sounding vocals. So this band does have two other albums, and apparently, according to the archives, they did kind of shift their sound after this album, and apparently went in a more kind of funeral doom direction. I've not listened to this band's next two albums, but I definitely will, because, I mean, I love funeral doom, and I mean, this debut is pretty killer, so I kind of have high expectations for the other two albums. But yeah, Hyponic, Black Sun, again, if you're a fan of Incantation, Autopsy, just like old school death metal, old school death doom in particular, check this out. I think it's pretty killer. Alright, next stop, we're going to Japan to talk about the band Wolf and their lone full-length album, Some Aspects of the Moment. The album title is a bit odd. I'm not really kind of sure what it's referring to. Maybe it's just kind of lost in translation type thing. I don't know. But regardless of the album title and kind of the little slightly boring album cover, this album whoops ass. Like, this is just classic heavy metal done, like, perfectly, honestly. Like, Japan, back in the 80s, they had a thriving, heavy metal scene. You think of, bands like Loudness, Anthem, X Japan, all these bands, and Wolf obviously never reached that level of infamy like as this Loudness or Anthem, but this is a pretty damn killer album. I thoroughly enjoy it. Just great riffs, great harmonies, great melodies, and great vocals too. Just kind of the soaring, classic heavy metal vocals, but with kind of the Japanese flair to them. So I really enjoy the vocals on this album. I think the production is pretty stellar. I think this album came out pretty late for being a classic heavy metal album, because this album came out in 1990. I think that's definitely kind of past the golden age of classic heavy metal. But so maybe that's kind of why this album remains a bit more obscure and underground, just because it came out pretty late in the game. But I think this is just a really killer album. If you like Loudness, Anthem, for non-Japanese bands, I'd say probably Scorpions is a really good comparison too. If you like those bands, check this out. I'll leave links to all these albums, because all of these albums are on YouTube, thankfully. I'll leave links to all these albums in the description below, so if you want to check them out, please do. I recommend all of them, obviously, but Some Aspects of the Moment by Wolf, really killer album. Alright, and the final album I want to discuss for this video is, forgive me, I'm probably going to butcher this band name, Ysigium, I'm not sure how to say that. I'm not even sure if that is it in Latin or something. I'm not sure how to say the band's name. But this is their lone full-length album again, Einsof Or. I probably butchered this entire thing. But yeah, this album, this is Funeral Doom. This is a dark, very heavy, oppressive, Polish Funeral Doom, and it is just such a dark, haunting, cavernous listen. The production of this album, it sounds like it was recorded inside of a chapel inside a cave. It just has this giant echoey sound. Again, it's just very cavernous, and yeah, overall, I really, really dig this album. This is just perfect for that early 90s Funeral Doom sound. It's very bleak, very hollow, very just kind of it feels like you're in a sea of despair. There's just this overwhelming sense of powerlessness and hopelessness all over this album. And yeah, this album is absolutely amazing. This album actually released before Thergophan's debut, Stream from the Heavens. I know there's still some debate as to what was the first true Funeral Doom album or bands. Most people do say Thergophan. Thergophan's Stream from the Heavens. Some people say that's the first Funeral Doom album, but this album came out before, and it isn't like Death Doom. It is full-on Funeral Doom. But granted, Thergophan's demos did come out before this band even formed, so I guess there's still the argument there that Thergophan was the first, and I would still agree with that. But yeah, if you're a fan of, again, Thergophan, Skepticism, Esoteric, Evoken, just classic, dark 90s oppressive Funeral Doom, check this out. I think it is absolutely killer. Probably my favorite album on this entire list, honestly, although that Wolf album is absolutely killer too. But I think I like this Funeral Doom album a lot. And well, that concludes this video discussing the albums I've been listening to and the albums I've discovered in the month of January. If you made it to the end of this video, you are awesome and I appreciate you. Do consider leaving a like if you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment down below. Tell me, do you agree? Or, well, not if you agree. What are some albums you've been listening to a lot lately? What are some albums you've discovered lately? Let me know down in the comments. And if you're not subscribed, do consider subscribing, because I do have a lot more content coming your way. And, well, that about does it. I am just another Heavy Metal Maniac. I'll see you all sometime in the future. In the meantime, all of you take care and have a great day. So long.